James, thank you very much for the kind introduction and welcome to everybody here who's participated. Before I get going, I'd also like to make a special thank you to my partner in crime here, Tony Waite. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. If you have any positive comments, email me. Any negative ones, of course, send those to Tony Waite. I'll provide the email addresses at the end. So, if I may, let me explain the aims of what I'm trying to do this morning. I want to change the way we think about education. I'd like to examine some of the theories that go behind good education. And I'd like to present a framework, a different framework, for how these things might be implemented into e-learning. Quickly, a brief history, not because it's particularly relevant to everybody, but because it helps put what's coming into context. Greek and Roman systems educated the individual, particularly at the higher levels. Teachers were paid by parents or slave owners, and there was no right to education as there is now. But then the Industrial Revolution came along, and that meant the workforce needed people who were competent in the 3 R's. Legislation in the 1870s and 1880s in Britain made some education compulsory. Education is used as an industrial method because it came out of the Industrial Revolution. So what you ended up with was this sort of thing. Up to 100 children in a class, because that's the industrial way of doing things. You only need one teacher. Whereas if you used the Greek and Roman system, you needed one per pupil. What that means is that we teach badly. That's not we are bad teachers. It means we teach badly. The way you learn best is unlikely to be the way I would prefer. The speed at which you can acquire knowledge in an area may be different to my speed of learning. Learning is an individual sport, not a collective one. The current systems are that we do whole class teaching, and that cannot work. Those who are faster will get bored. Those who are slower won't get it and feel alienated. And those people may go on to be disruptive to those who are in the middle part of the curve. No matter how good the teacher, a proportion of the class will be alienated. That's not down to the teacher. That's not a criticism of them. It's just the way the system works. E-learning tools such as Moodle and Blackboard, etc., allow some degree of individuality. However, there are problems. We tend to put up with shovelware. Shovelware is where we take the handouts that we used to have and put them onto Moodle and Blackboard because, hey, now students can look at them at any time of day. And then we teach in exactly the same way we did before. Can we do better? Well, of course we can. In mathematics, if the equations are getting longer, then you're probably looking at the problem in the wrong way. So, for example, everybody has seen E equals mc squared. That packs an awful lot of punch and is very short. The current system seeks to be financially efficient, to teach as many students as possible with the fewest resources to achieve a result. But let's imagine that system away for a moment. Instead of looking at things from the point of view of teachers and financial managers, let's change the focus to the students. The problem then becomes, how does that work best for the individual? Well, what's not good is these large class teachings. But what is good is where individuals get to do things at their speed, in their way. So here we have a teacher who's helping a couple of pupils who happen to be at the same level with whatever it is that they're doing. So what makes for good education? There are lots of theories of that, and I'm not going to trawl through all of them. There isn't time for the whole conference day. But there are going to be some that I pick out. Going at the speed of the student is important. Not the speed of the class, but the individual student. Breaking things up into small pieces of learning will make life easier for the students. So you're concentrating on one thing at a time, and you don't have to link various things together whilst you're trying to cotton on to what was said just now. Presenting the same materials in different ways and allowing the student to choose which way works best for them in this particular situation. And requiring proof of consolidation before progressing on to the next topic. This idea that you have to show some competency before you carry on will become important in a little while. So let's look at these individual. John Carroll wrote a throwaway paper in 1964, I think it was, 63, that said almost anybody could learn almost anything if given enough time. All students of whatever level will become more confident if they feel that they will understand a new topic because they understand the one on which it's based. That seems reasonably logical. John Bissell Carroll. So, small chunks only. Benjamin Bloom, Fred Keller and Robert Gagne all proposed a system in which a syllabus was broken into small pieces. Say one side of A4. That's not, it will be one side of A4. It might be much less than that, or it might be a bit more. But as a general concept, one side of A4. And they developed their ideas in exactly the same year, 1968. But because it was the 60s, and this was a time when education was trying to become more open, the ideas that these people produced became debunked because of all the over-liberalised systems of education which were going on. The students in these systems completed work on that topic and had to show competence before moving on. All three systems had that in common. And progress was to be recorded and monitored. And that will also reappear. The thing that you learn from this slide is that if you're in the field of education, you live into your 80s and 90s. I just thought I'd put that out there. Right. Using alternative materials. Neil Fleming put forward the idea that there were four main formats from which people might want to choose. Some would prefer to see what's happening. Others prefer to hear it. Some prefer to read it. And others prefer to do something using it, the kinesthetic. Whilst one teacher can't present materials in four different ways at the same time, a computer can give people the option of choosing how they want to understand a subject. Neil Fleming. Consolidation. There's a psychologist, Daniel Willingham, who says that learning, understanding and retention are all enhanced by repetition. What happens is that students need the opportunity to internalise new knowledge and new concepts. And for that, we need to process from short-term to long-term memory. So you're hearing me witter on here, and you're getting probably 3/4 of an hour of this. And I wonder how many of you have switched off on the way. And you think, well, no, maybe that's naughty. In a lecture, I shouldn't switch off. That's me being silly. No, that's the human brain at work. We tend to have a small short-term memory, then we need to shuffle some of that into longer-term memory. And so we close down at the moment whilst that processing happens. And that's why students switch off in lectures. They're not necessarily doing it because they're bored. Daniel Willingham, and he's still going. So what about the practicalities? Let's create a checklist for what a site would look like, which has the attributes that I've just described above. Who would use it and how? How would it work? Well, let's look at the components first. A syllabus is broken down into its constituent parts. Each part becomes a task for the student to complete. So let's call these tasks, because the student has to do something to show that they're competent. Each task must contain the following sections. It must contain a title and summary to put everything in context. It must have contents, so the description of whatever it is that's being discussed. There should be a video available, audio and PDF, so that the students can choose a different way of learning. There should be a self-assessment quiz, and the self-assessment quiz can be taken as often as the student likes, but it's a way of showing some sort of competency to themselves. And then there's work set by the teacher, which shows external validation of the fact that this particular component has been understood. But being a website, it can do all sorts of other things as well. It can link to useful sites. It can link to related tasks so that students can move forwards and backwards easily. We could have student-generated content. So Andy explains it in this way, but really it's much easier to understand if you do it like that. We're not always correct. We can have social media links. We can, so that students can discuss a particular topic. And we can have alternative tasks. So I create a task like this. You think, no, I don't like the way that this is explained. I would do it like that. You create another task on exactly the same topic. The student can now look for alternative tasks to this one, to mine. So let's move on to who would use the site. Students have to prove that they have understood. Teachers and tutors have to say which tasks need to be completed and to monitor progress. And there are content creators. These are people who add tasks to the bank of tasks. And everybody is all three of those. Yes, students can also be teachers and can be content creators. We are not the only arbiters of how things should be learned. You may have a student who's doing a particular topic from a different country and would like to translate that into their own first language. You may have somebody who has a particular expertise in piano tuning, for which there is no course normally. They can set this up. So everybody is all three of these. The idea is that everybody should be able to access lifelong learning. So teachers can look at new materials, new ways of doing things in their area if they want to as well. And because all tasks are publicly available, everybody has access to all the knowledge that's out there. So the task bank. Imagine anybody can create tasks. A task may be created by several different people or be available in several languages. Tutors can select those tasks that suit their syllabus needs without having to reinvent the wheel. So if it's out there already, create it. Students can try alternative tasks. So they can say, don't like Andy's, I'll go for the excellent ones produced by James. And we all know that James would produce excellent tasks. The syllabus bank. Well, others could use the same syllabus. Once it's been created, it's been created. That syllabus can be reused time and again. It can be reused by other people. So they can adapt it to their needs or roll it over for the next academic year and then tweak it. So, for example, you've been asked to take over my class, but unfortunately, you've only been told that the day before the class actually takes place. You can take a syllabus off the site, say, right, this is the syllabus, and use it in any way you feel fit. Any students can access any task, even if it's outside their syllabus. So let me explain that a little better. I used to teach programming, and I'd often get students say, I don't know about the colours. Have you got anything on colour theory or that? Well, it was all up there on in our case, Moodle system, because the art department had all that, but you can't access it. Oh no, this is our silo of knowledge. This belongs to us. And that's obviously not helpful. A tutor sets up a run of a course. A run is based on a syllabus. Each run has its own number. Students then apply to that run number that the tutor gives them, and only those students on the register get to be allowed onto the run. Anybody can see that run, but they're only a member of the course if they're on the register. So you have 50 people apply for your run because, hey, you're a good lecturer, aren't you? You're going to be good at it. Everybody's going to want to be in your class. But on your register, it says these 20 are the ones who are in your class. So you say, right, what's your number? And you can see their number on your list of people who've applied. You tick that. That person now becomes a member of that run. The others can see the same materials, but they're not your tutees. Tutors can load the monitoring page at the start of a class to see who's progressing and who needs help. How often have we had students tell us, yeah, I'm all up to date, I'm wonderful, only to find that at the end, they haven't actually started. So you would be able to see task by task how people are progressing. Completing and certifying. These are two different concepts. I will learn English one day. Students can take the self-assessment quiz. When they've completed a task by getting all the questions right, that task is ticked off and is ticked off for life. So once they've completed that task, that's theirs and will appear if they want to on their CV. They then do the work set by the tutor. And if the tutor thinks, after having interviewed them, that they understand this concept, they then tick it off and that piece of work is certified. That task may appear in several different syllabuses. So the way that the student shows that they have understood may be different from syllabus to syllabus. They need to show that they have transferred those skills. So whilst they won't need to complete the task again, they won't need to redo the quiz, although they can if they want to, they will need to show that they've understood it in this new context. But there are other advantages. If I go off sick, you can take over my class immediately. You walk in, load up the monitoring page, and you can see which students need help. Certification has to be in person, but that could be via a video link if a student can't attend. So we could have a student who's in hospital, they've got a broken leg, and they've got their laptop. Yes, explain it to me. There's no problem with that. The Viva ensures that all the work has not been AI generated. So AI generated coursework has been the bane of our lives for the last few years. How can you tell whether a student understood it or not? Well, by interviewing them is the only way. So on a one-to-one 5-minute chat, you get to find out whether the student has understood this particular task. How they understood it is irrelevant. Whether they got it from our teaching materials, whether they got it from another student, whether they got it because they looked on AI and that gave a really good explanation, we don't care. What we care about is that they understand. And if they can demonstrate that understanding, then they can be certified. Let me explain what I'd like to call the Ice Age problem. Let me tell you a story. I was teaching, and it was a lousy winter's day. The snow was hammering against the windows. And one student said, looks like there's another ice age coming. And another student said, well, at least there's no squirrel trying to bury its nuts. Well, Scrat, if you don't know the Ice Age movies, there's something that looks rather like a squirrel. He's a small saber-toothed squirrel based on something called a Plesiadapis. Plesiadapis was a rodent-type-like animal that lived in trees and was supposed to be the forerunner of humans. It was a little in-joke in the Ice Age movies. Well, I mentioned this in class and somebody said, can you write that on the board? So I did. Didn't think anything of it. And then I went round the class. And then I went round the class and there were 3 students who were looking up Plesiadapis on Wikipedia. Now, I thought that was excellent. They've learnt something. But of course, I can't accredit it. But they could do the task on Plesiadapis and get that completed, and then the students could be able to show that they have a broader range of tasks that they've actually looked at than just the ones that say, oh, this person can program. Scrat on the left, Plesiadapis on the right. I'm sure you really wanted to know that, and that's probably why you came to this session. Now it's sated. So, the future is AI plus teachers. This system is not there to replace teachers. The role of teachers will change, though, in the way that the role of teachers has changed massively over the years. Teachers will always be needed because interaction is one of the things that help you assimilate what it is you're doing. By having to explain a concept to somebody else, you're going to internalize it significantly better. Good teachers can fine-tune an explanation to suit the student. So yes, I've got the explanation here, but the student just isn't getting it. Let's have a chat with them, find out why it isn't happening for them. Only a person can do that properly, despite what chatbots will tell you. However, the contents of the tasks may in future become AI generated. So we will say, oh, we want these things covered, and the AI generates the tasks for those things. That's certainly possible. So, general site objectives. What was it that Tony and I were trying to achieve? Well, education should be free and freely available. Education should be student-centred and not teacher-focused. So let's have a look at the site. This is the site address. I'm going to show you it in a moment. It's in development for release in September 2026. So I've purposefully disabled most features at the moment because I don't want people thinking, oh, this site's rubbish. Well, they probably will anyway, but that's a different matter. If you want to register, you can at the site, and I will email you as soon as things become available. Learning Your Way for Life is free to use and will remain so. The purpose is to make education free and freely available anywhere in the world that has access to the internet. So, oh, sorry, not there yet. Whoops. Let me show you the site. Right. You come in and this is what you see. It'll start off with login, but you'll probably want to register. And I wanted to show you this because it shows what is not happening. Here, you are not asked for any personal details other than a valid email address.
Did you want to demo this site? It's not showing the screen, it's just showing the slides.
Ah, thank you. Yes. Right. Okay. Thank you. Escape.
Yeah, if you share the window or screen with your
Yep.
browser in, that should then show it.
Yeah, I've got to find it again. There we go. Do you see the site?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet.
Let me zoom. Okay. I can do this. Right. I hope. If not, I've been a fraud for the last 48 years. Do you see the site now?
Looks good.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's great. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Success. Ah, I like you, James. You're my friend. Right. What the site does not do is ask for any personal details. The only personal detail it asks for is a valid email address, and that can be one that's set up purely to use the site. So I might have Andy LYW4 as my email address, and I only use that for Learning Your Way for Life. I don't want to know any of your personal details because it's not necessary. You then create a passphrase, that's 3 words, and you say whether, sorry, I ought to mention one of the things that we thought might be a good idea is to be able to see how people learn, to see which systems are being used, whether they're going for the audio, for the video, in which order do they do things, and so on. So that's that bit. Once they've done that and pressed let's go please, they will be sent an email, and sometimes it goes to the bin, the don't get old, to the place where it puts all the things it thinks is rubbish, spam folder. Thank you, got there. So if you don't get the email directly, please do have a look in your spam folder. You can then log in with the number that the site has given you, and that is how you're identified. You can give that number to anyone in the same way as you might your email address. But as far as the site's concerned, that number identifies you. You then type in the passphrase and away it goes. Right, so there is an overview. Everybody can be a student, a tutor, or a task creator. Students can sign up for collections of tasks that interest them. So somebody has an interest in Plesiadapis, they can type in Plesiadapis, find tasks and go and use those. Or they might sign up for a run. They can go to Please Add Me for a run. There are all sorts of things available. There are resources available. Oops, sorry. Back. That's obviously something I've... that was working just now. Anyway, there are useful sites that students can go to. They can customize how they see things. I'm dyslexic. Black on white does not work for me. It swims. So I can change the colours and fonts, which is why I've got yellow and brown. That works for me. I can read that. They can change their email address. So if they move from one institution to another, they can change their consent and they can change their startup tab. So if you're the tutor, it makes sense to make your startup tab tutor. If you're a student, you leave it as student. You'll be able to message each other. There's a site on research. Usage is how many people are using the site and that sort of thing. Where do they come from? I'm not going to show that at the moment because, again, that's intentionally broken. And they can log out. Tutors, well, they can create runs and they can start a new course. Task creators can create new collections and create content that anybody can use. You cannot create private content. All content should be shareable. No more silos of knowledge.